We Make Movies is recorded in front of a live audience in Los Angeles and is hosted by WeMakeMovies.org. Hello and welcome back to How We Make Movies. My name's Amanda Lippert and I'll be your host. Each episode we talk with filmmakers about their personal journeys and experiences in the independent film industry. Tonight we'll be talking with the producer and director of the new indie film 3 Days of Normal, which premieres next week at the Dances with Film Festival. The film is a romantic comedy about a small-town cop in New Hampshire who unknowingly falls in love with a Hollywood starlet. Please welcome our guests, Jared Parsons and Ishai Sutton. Thanks for coming tonight, guys.
Yeah.
So you've been working on this film's been finished for a while, but it's just premiering. That's right. It's been taking about, what, 2 years from start to finish?
We shot it in the fall of 2010. And I think we locked picture earlier this year, right?
Yeah. I think it's about 2 years. I don't know when you started writing.
Yeah, that's another year and a half.
Yeah, so it's
3 years?
Yeah.
Work in the making.
Becomes a lot of one's life.
And then in the meantime, you guys have been working on other projects as well. I know you've been, you started with a different full-length film before you met up with these guys, and you've been working on The Kitchen in between?
Yes.
And you've been working on Battlegrounds. It was one of the first original series to get picked up on Hulu.
Yep.
Congratulations on that.
Yeah, thanks.
When do you guys have time to like do all this stuff?
Well, that's part of the struggle, you know. It's trying to keep at this while you have to kind of make a living and do other things. And, yeah.
Yeah.
Especially because this one, hasn't sold yet, and your other films are, there's always this process of, okay, well, we finished this, we wrap this, now we got to, get this into the market, but in the meantime, you're working on another project, and there's all this, like, lull time, it seems like, to, constantly keep something going, but pay the bills at the same time.
Yeah. No, there is.
I don't know.
No argument with that.
Yeah, I mean, lull time, but it's also like, I think like most, low-budget independent films, there's a long sort of gestation period in post where it's a lot of kind of trying to figure out what the movie really is and kind of pruning back what doesn't work. And I guess if you have a lot of money and a lot of people to throw at the problem and a lot of money to fix things, then it doesn't take as long. Yeah. But every film I've ever done, it takes on another life in post, kind of, and you come in contact with different people and editors and composers and who bring things to it, and it kind of grows and morphs and becomes a different thing and kind of sometimes takes on a different life. So that period of time is also just finding that the voice of the film is kind of part of it too, I think.
They say that it takes a movie's made 3 times: when it's written, when it's filmed, and then when it's edited.
Which is totally true. Each time it is reinvented. It really is. And I would say the lulls are not necessarily a negative at all. Time away is a great thing. And I actually tried to build it into the post schedule. I try to build in, it's intense work time. You get a cut, take a month off, 3 weeks away, try to get, some objectivity again, and then come back to it and look at it again. Because it's really, that distance is extremely valuable.
Are you ever afraid that you're going to lose momentum, though, and not finish it? That's always my biggest fear when I'm finishing a film. It's like, I've got to have a deadline, and I've got to finish it by this date, because if I don't, it'll never get done. It'll always just be sitting on the back burner.
I think deadlines are good, but it just depends on what the deadline is for. It's like saying you're going to have a rough cut, and then saying you're going to have a fine cut, and then saying you're going to picture lock. But I also a little bit on this film actually regret setting some of the deadlines that we set, because I didn't think that it ultimately served the film. And, not that I don't think it cost us anything really, because like I said, so much of the process is just kind of figuring out what the process is. But yeah, you've got to let your movie kind of find itself, and it'll do that through you, but it doesn't always necessarily like having too much forced upon it.
It's so much. It's so interesting. I think what we learn from every film that gets made and how each journey is different, but it's the same. How did you guys decide to get into filmmaking? When did that happen to you for you originally? Jared, you go first.
I don't remember. I remember shooting movies with my camcorder and gummy bears when I was like 10.
Eating gummy bears?
Well, I ate them at the end, but I mean, they were the actors.
Oh, they were the little puppets then.
Yeah. They were on toothpicks.
But yeah, Charlie Chaplin with the with the rolls.
I don't know. I wanted to go to film school and it just always seemed like the most fun thing I could imagine doing. So
did you ever have any plans to do anything else, or it was always film school?
I've been told that I wanted to be a shoe salesman when I was like 6.
Is it because you watched Al Bundy too much on Fox?
Maybe. I liked that they helped. They were like always helping you. They like wanted you to have a comfortable shoe.
It's a good job. I guess a good steady job. Making people's day.
Yeah.
What about you, Ishai? How did you get into
when I was 6, I wanted to work at Long John Silver's. That was really awesome.
I had that job when I was 16.
Oh,
it's overrated. It's not what you think it is.
I don't know.
Come
it seemed
home
glamorous.
smelling like fish.
Lots of fryer burns.
Yeah, I don't know why. I was really into Long John Silver's. But I was also into wrestling. That was like my big thing. Like in junior high, I loved WWF. I was obsessed with wrestling.
Yeah. I don't know any boy in the 80s and early 90s that wasn't into
wrestling. It was kind of awesome. It was a little weird when I look back at it. Like my room was covered with posters of
men.
But you wanted
men in Speedos.
You wanted to be a wrestler?
I didn't necessarily like want to be a wrestler, but
you wanted to be like
I wanted to be a part of it. Yeah, in some way. And then I kind of realized that wasn't happening. And
you didn't make the weight class?
Yeah, not quite. Not by a long shot. And so I don't know, somewhere around high school, my obsession with wrestling turned into an obsession with movies.
Theater. It's the show, right?
When I look back at it, I do think like a lot of it was the characters, the soap opera of it all, the narrative.
Yeah.
Wrestling is very theatrical.
Yeah, totally.
It is, and it was, and I when I think about it, like I didn't really watch the matches. I was like interested when they switched from good guy to bad guy, or when they, like it was all the extra stuff. The match didn't really.
Who was your favorite? Mine was Jake the Snake.
Oh, I love that. He was really good. Did you ever see the documentary, The Beyond the Mat?
No, I was so sad when he died, though.
All right. Anyway, you won't make me cry.
A little tear comes down your face.
But yeah, anyway, so then I just started making films with my friends. Mostly, we weren't the coolest kids in school, and we'd stay home, and the weekends and Friday night, Saturday night, I had like a VHS-C camcorder, the kind with an adapter that it fit in, and we would just make films to make each other laugh. It was like exercise videos and spelling bee and cooking videos, and
so a lot of parodies.
Yeah, just silly stuff. Really, just trying to make each other laugh. And then it sort of culminated with this little film that we did called the Ex-Porn Star Convention, where we were all like ex-porn stars, and we actually charged people $0.25 to come see it in my living room. And we had like 25 people in my living room.
That's good money back then.
First foray into distribution.
It is.
I was
more viable than now.
The other company.
I was listening to Inside the Actors Studio earlier today on YouTube, and he was interviewing Steven Spielberg, and he talked a lot about the same thing as really early on making films and charging people to see it and getting into the business of it early on. Like, I'm going to do this, whether I go to school or whether somebody gives me permission or not. I love that attitude. Did you guys feel like your families were supportive of your interest and your ultimate decision to go into it as a profession?
100%.
That's great.
Yeah, mine too. My mom's a writer.
Oh, that's good. Are your parents
she's a creative in some ways, so yeah.
I always find that people that come from creative families tend to be creative.
Yeah. My dad's an engineering professor.
Oh.
And my mom
Opposite?
it's open to interpretation.
That's true.
And my mom is a social worker.
Oh, wow.
So not creative,
but
overtly. But,
Right, but like my dad does real estate, and he is not by any means like he's Israeli. He's like not what you would think of as a creative person, but like I always thought he brought a lot of creativity to his
Sales is very
job
creative.
and like to what he does. Yeah.
But you have to reinvent yourself for every customer, for every client.
Sure.
I find that is. At what point did you guys move to LA? Where are you from originally?
I was born in Ann Arbor, Michigan.
Okay, so far from LA.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, not as far as some other places, but yeah.
And you went to NYU?
Yes. I went to NYU, as did Isha.
Yeah,
Wow.
we both went to.
Did you guys, is that where you guys met the We Make Movies dudes?
Yes.
And that's how you're here today, is you guys were both originally, early on, We Make Movies people.
Oh, yeah.
This film
Yeah.
Was workshopped here back
Yeah.
in 2009.
We workshopped the script. Yeah, I feel like it was like
Yeah.
way in the beginning. I don't know when you guys like officially started. But it was.
I think they're saying
it was at the
2009.
complex. It was at the complex, but it was like upstairs in like a little corner.
In one of the smaller rooms.
Yeah, but it was great.
We've grown since then.
Yeah, yeah, you guys are doing amazing things. But yeah, it's so great and so important to hear a script. You know.
Hear it out loud. Yeah. How did that influence you guys?
I think it probably didn't influence us as much as it should have, but you just feel the flow of scenes, you know, and you get a better sense of whether or not a character sounds like a character and what their voice is, and a little bit of also like pacing within scenes. You know, this is a fairly talky movie, I would say. Like there's a lot of like sort of bantery scenes. So hearing those is really important, and seeing what makes people laugh and seeing what makes people cringe or me cringe.
I feel like that helps more than anything. Like hearing the parts where you didn't even intend for it to be funny, but the audience, you know, really digs
totally.
it.
Yeah.
So at what point did you guys come out to LA? From New York?
I came out in 2003.
Was that a hard decision for you, or was it just
No.
a natural move?
No, it wasn't a hard decision at all. I was very anxious to leave New York at the time. I mean, I love it every time I go back, but I needed a change, and this seemed like the only other place to go. And I ended up going to grad school out here. But I was ready. I was ready to move, kind of regardless of whether or not I got in. I don't know. When did you come out?
Came out about 4.5 years ago. It was right before the writer's strike.
Oh, that was a bad time in New York. It's a really bad time.
Bad time there, bad time here, bad everywhere. But yeah, that's when I moved out here. It was like the week before that started.
Oh, great timing.
Yeah, I know. I'm good like that.
Brought it with you.
Yeah. And yeah, I felt like being in NYU in New York for a while, like I was sort of in a little bit of a bubble and didn't realize, like kind of naively when I got out here, just how much filmmaking was out here. And yeah, I remember getting here and I met a friend, went to some karaoke with them, and like afterwards everybody was like kind of chatting, and I was like, this person worked at like, I don't know, it was like NBC and HBO and Fox and MTV. I was like, oh my God, like everything is out here. Like,
Yeah.
and it just sort of dawned on me then.
I remember the moment that I had the, aha moment of as an actress, I was looking through the trade magazines, and I was in New York, and we had 8 TV shows at the time. I think now there's 6 out there, and there were 3 films in pre-production. And in LA, there were over 200 films in pre-production and over 250 TV shows. And I was like, oh my God, what am I doing with my life? I'm not going to be on Broadway anytime soon. I got to get out there. How did eventually the two of you guys meet? And I know that you started working on this film with Jace, who's your co-writer and who initially started the writing process, because it was kind of his story coming from New Hampshire. And then so you helped him complete the writing the film?
Yeah.
And
he started writing it and then would send it to me kind of for notes, and then we're just working so much on it. We were like, we should just kind of do this together.
You were giving so many notes that he was like, all right, come on.
Yeah, kind of. But I mean, it was fun because we're like, we're best friends, and so we would just pass drafts back and forth, and yeah, it was fun. Great.
And then at what point did you get onto the film?
I don't know at what point it was in that.
I think it was when you and I went and had a beer at that place on Vermont.
Oh yeah, the public house.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
It all starts in a bar.
It always does.
Yeah.
Yeah, with Jared especially.
And
Yeah. And ends.
and who introduced you guys?
We knew each other in New York, but not
Not as much.
super well.
Mostly through Joe.
Was
I
it-
think,
Mostly
right?
through Joe.
Yeah.
And you'd worked with Jace before.
Yes.
You did a short or something with him, right?
So it was
Yeah,
a
yeah.
small NYU circle.
It was a small NYU circle.
Yeah.
We knew each other. We didn't know each other that well in school, but knew of each other. And then yeah, as the script was kind of floating around, Joe Leonard, who was one of the founders of We Make
Yes.
Movies and a
We
good friend of
love
mine, he
Hi, Joe.
I think he sort of mentioned my name when they were looking for a director, and I had I made a film called The Big Bad Swim, and was kind of looking for projects, and it just kind of came at a good time.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
being an independent film project and having so much money and big names attached, you couldn't say no, right?
Exactly, it was impossible.
How did you guys go about getting the film funded?
It was all private equity from people. Most of it came through Jace, people that he had known as we were writing the script. It was kind of like, we should really try and make this, and so we sort of built it to be feasible on a low budget, and then when we thought it was close to being done, we started sending it out to people in various walks of life who are far better off than myself, and we just kind of cobbled together the money we thought we needed to make it, and we're very, very lucky that we were able to do that.
Is that a traditional way of getting an independent film funded? Or I'm not exactly sure how most people go about getting.
I don't know either. I gotta be honest.
Just figuring it out as you go.
I mean, I have no idea what other people do. I don't know. I've done it that way several times now. I have no idea how it works in like production companies, and you get agencies attached, and then they package it with this. And I mean, you guys probably dealt with that more of the kitchen, but even that I
little bit.
think was.
But The Big Bad Swim, I went through the process a lot, and that we had 27 investors in that movie. It was, we were in no position to say no to anyone. And it started out as, we were just shameless, and we were in a small town in Connecticut for that film. And I remember we did these just really embarrassing, in retrospect, sort of presentations in like art galleries in Connecticut where we would like show short films. And then I did like a PowerPoint about, why to invest in movies, and
The Dog and Pony Show.
Awesome. I would
I was
love to see that
25.
presentation,
Yeah,
actually.
I hope nobody has that anywhere.
With the flea circus and like
the worst,
some
the low point was when
bears on tricycles. And
there was like some sort of outdoor like street fair, and we decided to like have a table at this street fair.
it's awesome.
Wow.
And my wife, my girlfriend at the time, like made these cookies in the shape of Connecticut, and we were like next
There's a little
to.
over.
Yeah, it was like, how could they say no? And next to us was like some sort of farm animal stand. So there was like, I just remember at some point sort of like separating myself from the place and being like,
Nothing works up your appetite like.
handing out cookies like
Did
next
that
to
work
farm
for
animals.
you? Were you able
No.
to get no? Oh. Did you make any contacts at all, or was
Like
it just
all the
completely waste of time?
contacts were like, just wrote like people that would talk your ear off, that you'd like be like, maybe this is an investor, and kind of go down that road, and then at the end of the day it was like
And you realize-
nothing, and I'd be like, oh, I just spent like
They're just a guy
hours,
with
like-
an idea for a movie from a
Yeah.
small town. I got that a lot when I was in Ohio too. When I started producing my first film, everybody's dad. All my friends' dads, for some reason, would come to me. I've got this idea for a documentary, and I'm
Yeah.
like, I'm 19 years old. Like, I'm trying to do this little indie film.
But now with Kickstarter, you guys
Yeah.
can just send things to people digitally, and you don't have to interact
Yeah.
with them. It's great.
Never have to say a word to them.
Yeah.
But I think ultimately what did work there was the idea of, you know, we wrote a business plan. We had a DVD of short films, and you know, like I said, we were shameless. We had the script, and we just kind of went out with this package and just started with everyone we knew. At that point, I had friends who had like gone to business school. I sort of ran it by them, and I was like, "Does this look like legit? Do you buy it? Like, do you know?"
What are some of the key selling points when asking people to invest in a film? Because you're not guaranteed to get any money back at all,
in fact,
and it's not a nonprofit, so it's not like you get a tax deduction. And what are like? What do you say to people?
We put most people to lose their money on the Big Best film.
Yeah.
We were sort of like, you know, you probably won't get your money back. Like, but it'll be fun, and you're investing in this thing, and you can get a credit, and you know. And for that movie, it was like sort of when we got into Tribeca, it was like everybody was sort of
Happy with that.
Yeah.
Tribeca's pretty big.
Yeah, it was good.
Yeah. I think you have to, two things. One is having faith in your story, and the same reason that an actor wants to get involved is maybe the same reason that an investor wants to be involved, just because, you know, I don't know, this may come off sounding terrible, but I think that, you know, there are a lot of people with a lot of money who don't like what they do with their lives. And the chance to be a part of something that they kind of care about and think is special and interesting.
It's redeeming.
Yeah, like I think that's why they do it.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
Regardless of kind of like the investment potential or whatever, you know, it's like something about the idea speaks to them, the story speaks to them, and, you know, and it's kind of, it's a lark. It's like a fun, you know, if they like the people that are making the film and like the idea of the film and feel like there's heart in it or whatever attracts them to people, you know, then I think they can respond positively. You know, most of those people are pretty smart, so I think they're aware of the fact that it is a very risky investment, you know, but I think that they see it more as their opportunity to sort of like be a part of something that would be cool and fun, and festivals are a huge part of that, I think, and you know, credits are fun too, I guess, but I think it's just people wanting to sort of like be a part of something that feels not like maybe what they do the rest of their lives.
And it is a very collaborative, creative process.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You talked to me a little bit about the challenges of the casting process. Both of you guys talked to me about this. Being in a small town and so far from New York and LA, just getting people to come out to you and finding the right actors. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, you start. First of all, just to preface, we were in this very small town in New Hampshire called Washington.
It's a population of 700 people.
Yeah,
Wow.
and
that's where the movie
gorgeous.
takes place. It's beautiful,
But it is like the stereotypical quaint New England, like, you know, a church, a town hall, and a
police station.
school.
Police station?
Well, the police station was the church.
Oh, right.
So it's like a church.
It was a
church.
for
Oh, the
what?
schoolhouse.
Oh, yeah.
It's a church, a schoolhouse, and a town hall. All white wood, like it's the stereotypical New England town.
And corner store.
The corner store across the street.
Yeah.
And then, but anyway, when you're out in a place like that, it is, one, very difficult to even physically get a hold of people for various reasons. But yeah, it's hard. It's a tough sell, you know, to convince a young, you know, actor or actress to like, or anyone who's an, you know, working actor in Los Angeles to uproot their lives and come to like the middle of nowhere, regardless of how beautiful it is in fall. You know?
We use that a lot. The autumn leaves
Yeah.
as a selling point.
Whenever
Fall in New
you needed
England.
something to
Yeah.
fall back on.
Yeah, and I mean, no cell phone service, no like spotty internet, like all that kind of stuff. And I used to, when I would have like a conversation with an actor, I would have to drive to the Dunkin' Donuts, which was, you know, 20 minutes away. It was like there was like a parking spot that I found that like it wouldn't cut out. And I would just like sit in my car at the Dunkin' Donuts and like do phone calls.
That became your office.
It was my office. Yeah, it was the only place where you could like have an extended conversation.
And what about internet? Since you said you didn't have internet.
Well, we
How
did
did you
have,
live?
we had it.
Yeah, we did have internet.
Our production office was also where the crew stayed, which was at the summer camp in this town, and they had internet, but
Oh, cool.
but
we
we did
did
not
it.
have cell phone service.
So did you guys have to stay in cabins while
yeah.
you were there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how long were you there?
It was awesome.
Well, that part of it
You
was
and me were
4 or
you
5
and I
weeks.
were there
Yeah,
longer.
we were there a long time. You and I alone in a cabin.
Yeah, we spent
with
a
the
while
mice.
with the mice.
Was there
Jared,
a lot of wrestling that happened
There was
during your
no
spare time?
there were no body slams.
there's no medicines. But there was me jumping up on the couch while Jared had to go take care of mice. Yeah. We have that kind of relationship.
It's a good filmmaking analogy.
It is actually.
Yep.
Yeah. Whether it's a mouse or an actor or something.
Yep.
I was like, "Yeah." Handle it, Jared.
Was Jace also with you guys during this time? Or did he have a house that he was living in while you guys were at the
So
summer
he's
camp?
from New Hampshire.
Yeah, he lived close, but like too far away for us to kind of. It was like, why would we go to Jace's town? Because it's like 30 minutes away or something.
Or even more.
So-
Yeah. But it was
Yeah,
it was
exactly.
further away and yeah. So he was at his house and we were sort of, doing finding the locations or whatever, and he'd come by on the weekend and then
Yeah.
yeah.
You told me, I think, one of the most interesting stories about working in a small town, and it was when you guys were looking for the locations and how you guys went about that. You made friends with someone.
Yeah. Well, they had actually met him first, but the chief of police of this town in Washington was just an amazing guy. And, the first time we walked in, he had this giant Paul Blart Mall Cop poster over his desk. And he looks a lot like Paul Blart Mall Cop.
It was given to him by the other officers because
Of
he
his
looked like
resemblance.
Paul Blart.
And he was proud of it.
Oh yeah, really proud of it, and he's the sweetest guy, and he would take us on these like location scouts, because we told him what we were looking for, and he knows all 700 people in town, and so we would go on these drives where he would like put us in the cruiser. And we'd just go from house to house, and like he'd knock on the door if somebody wasn't there. He'd like be like, "Oh, I know where the key is," and he'd like pull out the key and let us in.
He would just walk around their house while they were at home.
They weren't home. Some of them are like vacation homes, they're like lake homes and stuff, and so
And he would occasionally pull people over.
just mostly it was just like, "Hey, Mary," and then he'd like pull past her and give us like the lowdown on Mary. And,
Yeah.
and yeah, I mean, the weirdest thing was like how the radio like really wouldn't go off that much. Like, I mean, it was just like
So you
he
guys
would
were
take
just
us on these
cruising.
long. I mean, like sometimes it was like 3, 4, 5 hours. Like we would all afternoon. He's the chief of police of the town. Like, there's just not a whole lot going on there.
Well, it also sort of like put the story in. It was like, oh, this really so the movie's about this like cop in a super tiny town who is so oblivious to the outside world that this famous actress basically crash lands in his town and he doesn't know who she is. So like we felt like we found the place where this story could actually happen. Do you know what I mean? 'Cause
Yeah,
it's like,
absolutely.
It's just kind of its own little pocket of the world and this blissful little bubble of.
When you guys
perfect
were
New
writing that
Englandness.
script, did you feel like a place like that still existed in America?
I think so. I mean, I don't think we would have written it if we
Oh,
didn't.
yeah.
But
I guess so. Yeah, you're right.
it was more cool that we'd found it to actually shoot in.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it was great because we had a couple months before we started production that we could be in the town and sort of, just soak all of this in and, go to the local eateries and meet local people and just get the flavor that, ultimately you want to try to put in the film and get across so that was very valuable.
When shooting in a small town, did you guys find the opposite of LA, that people were really giving and generous with their homes and with their time?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
I mean, again, another example of the awesome Chief Stephen Marshall in Washington, New Hampshire, was he's the chief of police, so they have this email blast that goes to everybody in town.
But it's
So
not, it's actually it's like their snow alert system. It's like
Oh,
their
right.
winter alert system.
Right.
Okay, Karen.
I didn't know that. That's interesting.
Yeah.
But if we needed something, like a certain picture car or this, or, you know, it would go out on the snow alert system. Like, citizens of...
Emergency.
This is super important.
Very important.
Yeah.
Everyone stop what you're doing.
So we're doing. We're looking for a Jeep. Does anybody have a Jeep?
Right.
The movie people are looking for a Jeep. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, it becomes a very, you know, awesome large family, you know, like the actors all stayed at this bed and breakfast. So like, you know, that lady that ran the bed and breakfast was a whole other part of it, and her sons, and then her, you know, their families, and the people who ran the summer camp, who were like this couple who had left, you know, lawyers from Boston who'd like, were like, screw this, we're gonna go run a summer camp in rural New Hampshire, you know, and like, just, yeah, you know, just people come out of the woodwork, and you're amazed at how, it's sort of like, part of it is reminding you how much you're like, oh, right, this is like tons of fun. You know, like you slog away at it in Los Angeles, and you're like, you know, how am I going to make a living? And like,
There's
what am I
that
going to do?
element
And
of
then
it
like,
here, isn't there?
yeah, and then you know, get outside and get to go do it, and
Yeah.
And realize how
Breath of fresh
important
air.
your stories are to other people, especially when you're telling their story.
yeah.
Yeah.
How did your time spent with that police officer affect your story? Did it change the script
We
at all?
picked up. I don't want to try and portray it as like Stephen Marshall was this guy. Like I
Oh,
think
yeah,
I think it'll make him see like
I mean,
you
you
know,
already
because then
wrote
you'll
the
watch
script beforehand.
Oh yeah. No, Stephen was just awesome and a blessing, and you know, we were lucky and fortunate to have linked up with him and capture some of his enthusiasm. But at little things, like little lines, there were a lot of little line tweaks that we
Yeah.
made of just cute little things that we found people saying out there, like little, not, what's the right word?
Colloquialism?
Yeah.
Do you remember any?
I don't.
Is Jeezum Crow? Is that one?
Jeezum Crow is one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
People would say Jeezum Crow, like instead of Jesus Christ. Jeezum Crow. Whatever. That's in the script.
There was a lot of that. There was, giving you a whistle. It's like if you're calling someone,
Yeah.
like leaving a message like, hey, just giving you a whistle. Which is pretty awesome. I think everyone should say all the
Yeah.
time. But little things like that. I mean, by then, like the train tracks had been laid by the time we got out there in terms of the story. So, but yeah, there were little things we kind of picked up on, I think, or tried to.
What did you guys learn from this experience that was different from your previous experiences on full-length films that you'd produced and directed? Everything, I feel like every project, there's some things are just exactly the same. You're always going to have to deal with the same, you know, problems and issues. And then other things, like you grow, you know, every time you do it, maybe in ways that you weren't expecting.
You can go first this time.
All right. I mean, you learn. Yeah, you just learn a lot. And look, every project is an education. The whole, I view directing and filmmaking as a giant, I don't know, educational experience, and it's always evolving and growing and turning and changing. And so this film was just another step in that direction. The importance of the script and getting the script as good and tight as you possibly can beforehand, I think can never be said enough. You know, it just is super important. And, you know, sort of matching that with like, okay, when the pieces are in place, then you just got to go and trust that you're ready. You know, you can't perfect it forever, but you also have to, you know, get it to a place where it's good. Trying to make sure you have enough time to shoot was really important for me. We were on a very limited schedule, so that was, just making sure you know how much time it will take to shoot a scene, like actually, and without compromising things.
Did you find that your actors and your crew, being that you were out in the middle of nowhere, were a little bit more forgiving if you had to run over? It's not like they had
in
anywhere else to
general,
be.
I personally don't like to go over too much because I'm not a big fan of like the 18-hour days or whatever,
Yeah.
I think, a good hardworking 12-hour day is like a good amount of time in general. And so I try to keep that. I think it keeps morale up. I think it keeps the energy up. I think when you like work people too hard, you don't win favor, and you sort of lose. I don't know. For me also, I think that the experience of making a film, whatever it may be, so all these people, all these surroundings, the environment, the family atmosphere, no matter what, I feel like subconsciously that mood, that attitude seeps into your movie and can be felt by an audience. So it's really important to me, like in this process, that when we were at the summer camp, to like, the first night, like, let's have a bonfire, let's have a thing, let's everybody is together, everybody can feel free to give advice, can talk freely, can, and no matter who you are, you might have a good idea, like, and you try to foster that environment, and you just hope that that you feel that in the movie a little bit, that love kind of,
Are you always that open with your cast and crew to take words from everyone?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, within reason and at the right time. But yeah, for the most part.
What about you? What did you take away from this that you didn't get from your previous experience?
I was supposed to spend all that time listening to him coming up with something witty.
So you didn't learn anything? Nothing at all?
No, I learned a lot, but I'm just trying to think of something. I agree with Yishai completely on the sort of mood that you create, being the experience showing up on screen. I also just think it's your life, so why would you want to work on something that you hate, physically and emotionally? Like, I think it's important that, when you're a director or you're a producer or whatever, like, you try to create an environment that people like going to work every day and, enjoy themselves at. But I think for me, it's mostly been about the post-process and now, distribution and stuff like that. And
do you enjoy that process as much as pre-production and production?
No, and I'm really, sadly, quite ignorant about it, my background is really in production and actually getting the thing made. And this has been like is and continues to be a big learning process in terms of distribution, which is sort of like a weird world of, smoke and mirrors. And
that's the next step for you. And you're going to start the festival circuit now.
Yeah. But it's also been the kind of we've been in it for the last kind of couple months as well, And so I don't know. I don't know what I will learn, but when we get out of it, hopefully.
I think that, the industry is in like a really weird place right now. You're in this limbo of, I don't know. I mean, the way I watch movies has been changing recently, and I think that's happening to everybody, and the way we consume media and film or internet or on demand or
Hulu and Netflix is completely. I don't have a television in my house.
Yeah.
Like I just stream on the internet now, and I think a lot of people our age do.
Yeah. I mean, I think it, even 3 or 4 years ago, when like, I don't know, you're making Big Bad Swim or we're making Hard Lost. It's like, it's changed. Like now there's just so many different possible avenues you can take your film down in terms of distribution. And it's empowering, but it's also like,
terrifying.
Okay.
You got to get a little creative.
And how do you do it? So we'll see.
One thing I always ask my guests on the show, and I think it's really the line that makes you an independent filmmaker rather than studio filmmaker, is how important is it for you to maintain the rights of your work and to have the film made your way rather than just, you guys could have made this film or written the film and then just sold it. But
well, I don't know about that, but
okay, you could try. But why was it? What was that drive that made you guys want to just really make it yourselves and not give it away, even if somebody handed you $1 million? Or would you have sold out?
For the record, if they, it just that never seemed like a reality.
Yeah.
We wanted to make the movie,
right?
And no one was going to give us the money. So
it was really no other choice. Just make it.
Yeah.
At any point, did it get too hard? Did you consider walking away?
No.
No?
No.
Did you? Were you ever like fed up with these guys? Like they can find another director. I'm done.
No, I didn't consider walking away. I mean, there's moments of extreme frustration, and moments where you're like lost and down, and like, is this ever going to be finished or realized in any way? But yeah, you know, there's the equal polar opposite, and that when you just, I don't know, I think it's like when you read a script the first time, you like look for these little things that attract to you and appeal to you, and and that's what ultimately drew me to the movie. And at those low points, or when you feel that, you kind of like have to remind yourself, you kind of have to go back to those little things. And for me, for this film, it was like it would like harken back to these like screwball comedies of the 30s, and had this like good like antagonistic romantic relationship. And so like anytime I got down, I just sort of like imagine its potential and imagine why I was there in the first place, and kind of use that as fuel to get you through.
Keep going.
Yeah.
Awesome. We're going to open it up to audience questions right now. Chris, do we have any? Awesome. Okay, the first one is from our Twitter handle at @CKukahiko. It's Chad Kukahiko. And he said this is for Jared. How did Battleground get picked up or greenlit or whatever with Hulu? And how is that going? And will there be more?
It went. Sorry, the first one was how did it get picked up? I wasn't really involved in that part of the process that much. Sorry, am I not
Chad's
supposed
over
to?
here.
Yeah, sorry. I don't have a whole lot of insight on that part of the process because I was around for that, but I wasn't really part of the meetings or whatever the case may be. Like most other things, I guess, in Los Angeles, I know our executive producer had been friends with the development executive at Hulu for a while, and when they started looking for projects, he had this project that he had sort of known the creator of for a while, and they just kind of came together. And then Hulu kind of, I do know Hulu had shot a spec pilot a couple years ago, and they saw that and kind of could feel the tone and sort of like the style of the show from that, and I think that was a big part of what attracted them to it. But yeah.
Did they get picked up for a second season?
We have not officially been picked up, but I don't know.
Okay,
I don't know
so
what I should say.
everybody will have to wait and see. The next one's from Robert Millett. Robert Millett. The colors of fall perfectly play I'm sorry.
The colors of fall practically play a character in the film.
Was that
How hard was that to schedule?
So did you basically schedule your film around the
Yeah,
seasons?
we did. There was a lot of like me Googling like peak autumn leaves, New Hampshire, and looking at all those websites and people's predictions and seeing photos from when people took photos, in years past, and like what the date was, and trying to be like, okay, look, Jared, we have to be ready on October 30th, whatever the date was. Like,
yeah, and it actually affected which parts of the state we scouted in. It affected, obviously, what we kind of stuck in the sand as the latest possible start date.
Exteriors first, kind of like trying to go with, when we thought it would be the peak, but just in case it hadn't peaked yet, then we would,
Yep.
And
then I also learned a lot about what affects, environmental factors affect the changing of the leaves and how long the season lasts and when the season starts and when the season ends.
Were you guys spraying the trees with chemicals at any point?
We were doing rain dances.
there is practice. There's usually somebody off screen, like trying to shake a tree during those shots. Yeah.
Just so get it to fall. Just
so there'd be some, dropping leaves, or the poor
The
like
Greens department is
art director or
climbed
whatever.
up an oak tree somewhere.
I just remember Sean, like a props art director, props person, who like had a garbage bag full of autumn leaves like all the time.
hanging one leg from
It
a
was
tree.
just sort of-
Yeah.
Just always like throwing these leaves out. He's like sitting on the roof of a house. Like,
Most boring job in the
Yeah.
world. But he's still on a movie set, so it's got to be pretty cool. What were some of the unexpected surprises during the casting process? And I don't know who this came from either. Eric.
Not confident.
Other Eric.
um,
What were the surprises?
What were some unexpected surprises during the casting process, if you had any?
just the great actors we got to work with. I don't know, Richard Reilly plays the chief of police, played the Jace's boss in the movie, the chief of police of Washington, and he's just this actor that if you see him, you'd recognize him. He's been in Office Space and a ton of movies, and he was just so good and great. And I remember talking to him, and like the first day he was on set, and he told me that he was in The Iceman Cometh on Broadway with Kevin Spacey, and I was like, oh my God, I was in that audience. Like, I saw that show when I was at NYU, and
Wow.
and I remembered loving it so much. And I don't know, it's just like the caliber of performer was just mind-boggling in my mind. It was just great.
Was there anybody that stood out for you
Really.
that you were just like, oh, this actor was made for this
Alex.
role, that happily surprised you?
Well, I think Alex
Yeah.
and Fenger, because we hadn't seen him in anything.
Yeah.
Really? Right? I
No,
That was the
This was
younger,
his
that
first
was the
theater.
younger kid.
This was his
right?
first film.
Yeah.
Wow.
He plays this like stoner teen in the town who kind of everybody, the cops all know, and they kind of like, half, they arrest him, but it's more of like they're the parents to this kid who's just like always doing something ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
And, but he was just sort of like a revelation because I think he put himself on tape in New York.
With, like the worst
we watched-
tape audition ever, with like somebody
It was
vacuuming in the
fine.
back
It was
room.
okay.
No, it was like impossible to
It
hear.
wasn't. It was the person working in the building, though. He didn't have any control over that.
So you
But look,
you watched this audition tape, it got through the casting director, and you still called him back for another with the
Yeah,
vacuum
we
going
just-
in the back?
You know
We
what?
just
I think the
liked
lesson
him.
is,
I
like, if
don't
you think
know.
about
It's
it, and
just-
how we cast Marseille was like this very imperfect Skype audition where we couldn't hear her, and we were like on a landline phone
Yep.
over in New Hampshire.
Yep.
Maybe there's something to this.
Maybe it was
I
all
just-
a big happy accident.
Yeah. No, but Alex is really funny, and I, right away I was like, he's in the kitchen, and he's in everything else, and
Yeah.
his like web series. He's in Ben Stiller's new movie now. He's like
Oh, that's
taking off.
awesome.
Yeah, it's great.
And was that
So-
his first full-length film? Was with
This
you?
was his first.
That's
movie,
great.
The
Yeah,
kitchen,
people
the
just-
kitchen is his second, and his third is Ben Stiller's movie.
Oh, good for him.
Yeah.
Good for him.
Yeah.
Why this movie? This is from @Brennan_Weinhold, also from our Twitter feed. What about the story made you feel like you had to make it? And I know you partially wrote it, so maybe this question is more for you.
Yeah.
For me,
Yeah. Well, what was it that drew you to this story?
like I said, that screwball comedy sort of, mood of the movie, but also just the idea of telling just a love story, something sweet and simple, and taking sort of the romantic comedy concept and just grounding it a little bit in reality and trying to create this world where people actually exist and might actually fall in love and just trying to make a believable,
Yeah.
incredible love story. Yeah.
It's fantastic. Well, on a closing note, we're going to be sending this out as a podcast. We're making a video version of it. And we've got our audience right here. For someone who's just getting into filmmaking, who's where you guys were 10 years ago, what advice would you give? Whether they're in a small town and just thinking about moving to LA, or whether they're already out in LA and struggling to get started.
Start.
I think just keep making stuff. Keep working on anything you can. I mean, maybe not anything you can, but I mean, like, just keep working and
Porn.
Especially
Yeah.
porn.
there. I feel like there are things worse than porn.
Los manos of fate.
Yeah, I think just keep working on stuff and because everything is down the road, it's all going to be a part of the bank of experience that you have, and I think the more this is sort of, it's like the more times you can see things go terribly, terribly wrong, it's probably better. Like the more, because then you'll know how to keep that from happening next time. And just keep getting your, feet and hands dirty in whatever you can.
Right.
And eventually you'll be on something that you're like, wow, this is actually why I got into this,
Oh yeah, I thought it was fun at some point down the line. What about you? What advice would you give?
Yeah, I guess it's probably similar. I don't think you have to move to LA. I think you can probably stay where you are. And I think it's, in some cases, I think, we had to leave LA to make this movie. I think that was actually part of the process of this film.
I think that's an interesting part of it, being a big fish in a small pond.
Sure. And I'm a huge advocate of shooting films outside of major metropolitan areas. I think it's just a much better experience. But I think just create things and don't, I don't know, just keep making things. I think that's why everybody's here.
We make movies.
We make movies.
That's what we do.
And maybe the other thing I would say is try to just maintain whatever it is in that, like, the reason that you did move out here or that you decided to make movies, that, like, little spark, no matter what happens, no matter how shitty everything gets, like, it's just hold on to it in some way because you can always tap into that. And, I've had the good fortune of having people sort of remind me of that repeatedly through life. And it's like when you get that back, you're like, oh, yeah, that's what I'm doing. That's why I'm here. That's what I want to do. So I think that's...
And the other thing I would add, sorry, I wanted to say this though, but is cherish the people that are around you. Find good people to work with, whether you're in, Washington, New Hampshire, shooting little movies, or, in Cleveland or in Los Angeles. Like, if you're making things or you want to make things, find good people and cherish them, and keep working with them. And like if you couldn't glean from our story, like everybody, when I get to do what I want to do to any degree whatsoever, I always want to get people on that I have known and I trust and that I enjoy working with. And, if you find good people who are going to fight the good fight and, keep their swords out for whatever period of time, just stick with them, and you guys will all kind of gradually find a way to kind of, win battles together, I think, and kind of get somewhere cool, hopefully.
That's great. For our viewers and listeners out there who are not going to be able to make it to Dances with Films next week, how can they keep track of what's going on with the film and follow you guys in the future?
Facebook's probably the easiest thing.
Facebook.com/3 days of normal, number first.
Number first, 3 days
Always
of normal.
number first.
Okay.
That's a little tip. Number first. Go to Dances with Films website.
What's the first movie that pops up?
Go to VOD. Yeah.
Ah, that is good.
There's a thought behind that.
Awesome.
Very little, but some.
And 3daysofnormal.com. We'll post all the screenings. I think we have Twitter and
Yeah.
Follow us.
That was very convincing.
Was it?
Follow us.
Follow us.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for coming and talking with us and inspiring us, sharing your stories with us. Everybody check out 3 Days of Normal on Facebook and come to Dances with Films and see their premiere.
Please.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you guys so much.
Thank you guys so much. Thank you.
And cut.